This is Ireland, a realm where ancient stone embraces wild Atlantic waters. Here, at Europe's western frontier, a landscape shaped by elemental forces reveals its timeless character through layers of stone holding 5 millennia of human stories. These weathered monuments and hidden pathways tell of a civilization that flourished when Egypt's pyramids were young, creating art of such mathematical precision that modern scholars still struggle to unlock their secrets. For centuries, Irish people have lived in profound conversation with this mercurial land, a relationship tested through Viking invasions, colonial hardship, and the Great Hunger that drove millions across oceans. Through it all, they preserved traditions of music, storytelling, and craftsmanship that would eventually influence cultures around the world. What wisdom emerges when humans cultivate an unbroken connection to landscape over thousands of years? In Ireland, we discover not conquest of nature, but participation in its deepest rhythms. Join us as we journey through this Emerald Isle, where you'll discover hidden wonders that reveal Ireland's soul. Found in windswept headlands where golden eagles have returned after centuries of absence. In medieval passageways that now shelter rare bat colonies, and in the eyes of those who call this ancient land home. Here, cultural and ecological revival move in harmony, each strengthening the other. Beyond tourist trails lie secret places few travellers ever witness. Join us as we journey beyond the ordinary into a world where wonder awaits at every turn. Welcome back to another Cultroverse exclusive. The Cliffs of Moher rise 214 metres from the churning Atlantic. Their Namurian shale and sandstone faces representing over 300 million years of Earth's memory. Here, where the continent ends abruptly, Atlantic forces have sculpted one of Europe's most dramatic coastlines, home to Ireland's largest mainland seabird colony. With over 20 species, including charismatic Atlantic puffins, elegant black-legged kittiwakes, and rare choughs with their distinctive red bills and legs. Each layer tells a story from a different chapter of Ireland's formation. These compressed sediments were once the bed of an ancient river delta where prehistoric life first crawled from sea to land. The darker bands contain fossils of creatures long extinct, predecessors to the rich diversity of marine wildlife that thrives in these waters today. From playful dolphins and basking sharks to colonies of guillemots and razorbills that nest along these cliff ledges. For millennia, these cliffs served as both fortress and warning, the first defence against invaders and a final glimpse of home for millions of Irish emigrants forced abroad during famine years. If you see the subscribe button, click it. It's completely free and it helps us create more films like this. As we journey north from the cliffs, Ireland's landscape transforms into something otherworldly. The Burren, from the Irish word Burren meaning rocky place, stretches before us like a moonscape amid emerald surroundings. This seemingly harsh environment represents one of Europe's greatest ecological paradoxes, a place where over 70% of Ireland's native flora species have found refuge in a landscape that appears nearly barren from a distance. This 350 square kilometre limestone plateau defies conventional understanding of Irish landscape. The vast stretch of exposed karst appears barren at first glance, a natural desert in Europe's wettest country. But Ireland's true magic often lies in contradiction. The Burren's seeming harshness conceals an ecological wonder, a landscape holding over 70% of Ireland's native flora in just 1% of its territory. This exceptional biodiversity emerged from the ancient human farming practices and natural processes, creating what ecologists now recognize as one of Europe's finest examples of a high nature value farming landscape. In these stone crevices thrives an impossible botanical marvel, Arctic, alpine and Mediterranean plants growing side by side in defiance of natural law. Gentians from the Alps flourish beside orchids from the Mediterranean, while Arctic saxifrages mingle with rare Irish orchids. This exceptional plant diversity, over 70% of Ireland's native plant species in just 1% of its land area, creates microhabitats supporting unique butterfly populations and insect species found nowhere else in Europe. The secret lies beneath our feet. The limestone stores heat like a natural battery, creating microclimate zones among the rocks that allow plants from vastly different regions to thrive together in this Irish anomaly. Standing sentinel on this lunar landscape, the Poulnabrone portal tomb has marked this spot for nearly 6 millennia. This Neolithic doorway to the afterlife reminds us that humans have found meaning in this strange landscape since time beyond memory. Excavations revealed the remains of over 30 individuals buried beneath this stone monument, along with polished stone axes, bone pendants and pottery. Evidence of sophisticated ritual even in deepest prehistory. The Burren reminds us that Ireland's beauty isn't always obvious or easy. Like the Irish themselves, this landscape reveals its true character to those patient enough to look deeper, finding abundance where others see only stone. As we leave the lunar landscape of the Burren, Ireland begins to reveal a different face. The rocky coast gives way to gentler contours, a landscape where water and mountains speak in softer tones. The ancient Irish understood their island as a living entity, with water serving as its lifeblood. Nowhere is this more evident than in Connemara, where hundreds of lakes reflect constantly changing skies, creating Ireland's most photographed light. Like a Gothic fairy tale rising from the Connemara wilderness, Kylemore Abbey stands as testament to both tragedy and resilience, themes that run deep in Irish identity. Built in 1868 as a romantic gift from Mitchell Henry to his wife Margaret, this lakeside castle became a symbol of devotion. When Margaret died tragically from fever just years after completion, her heartbroken husband built the neo-Gothic church we see on the grounds as a memorial to their love. Destiny took an unexpected turn when Benedictine nuns fleeing Belgium during World War I found refuge here, transforming a monument to romantic love into a sanctuary of spiritual devotion. For over 100 years, these sisters maintained both castle and gardens while establishing Ireland's premier girls' boarding school. The restored Victorian walled garden represents one of Ireland's most remarkable horticultural achievements. Its 6-acre expanse contains plants from across the globe, many of which shouldn't survive in Ireland's climate, but thrive due to ingenious Victorian engineering and the garden's protected position. But Kylemore holds a secret most visitors never discover. Hidden in the mountain overlooking the abbey lies a cave, long associated with ancient spiritual practices. According to local tradition, this was once a site of pilgrimage for Ireland's earliest Christians, who followed the tradition of cave retreats established by desert fathers. The cave remains unmarked on tourist maps, known primarily to locals, who will occasionally point the way to respectful visitors. Inside, centuries of prayer have left a palpable sense of tranquility, a hidden sanctuary for contemplation above one of Ireland's most photographed landmarks. From the tranquility of Connemara, we arrive in Galway, Ireland's cultural heartbeat, and a city that somehow manages to feel both intimate and cosmopolitan. Known as the City of Tribes, after the 14 merchant families who once controlled it, Galway balances its medieval bones with youthful energy. Over a quarter of its population are students, giving this ancient trading post a perpetually vibrant atmosphere. Galway pulse with Ireland's richest traditional music scene. On Shop Street, talented buskers create spontaneous concerts where centuries-old ballads mix with contemporary compositions, all unified by distinctively Irish melodic structures passed through generations. The Irish call this tradition craic, pronounced crack, a unique concept encompassing good times, conversation, music and community spirit. Nowhere embodies this cultural phenomenon better than Galway. In the shadow of St. Nicholas Church, where Christopher Columbus once prayed before sailing west, Galway's market has operated continuously since medieval times. The stallholders today are descendants of families who have sold goods here for centuries. Unlike touristy markets elsewhere, Galway's market remains primarily for locals. Early on Saturday mornings, before most tourists arrive, you'll find farmers speaking Irish as they exchange recipes, along with their produce, a tradition unbroken for hundreds of years. The river running through Galway reveals one of Ireland's most fascinating living traditions, the ancient fishing weirs. that have been operated by the same families for over 800 years. These strange wooden structures are Galway's fishing weirs, an ingenious medieval technology granted to certain families by royal charter in the 1200 cests. The Lynch, Curwen and O'Brien families still hold these ancestral fishing rites today, maintaining their weirs using techniques unchanged since the Middle Ages. The design channels salmon into traps during their annual migration upstream, using nothing but the river's natural flow and wooden structures crafted from local oak and hazel. Such fishing methods have vanished almost everywhere else in Europe, but survive here as living heritage rather than museum pieces. What makes these weirs extraordinary isn't just their historical significance, but how they represent Ireland's unique approach to tradition, not as something fossilized in time, but as living knowledge passed from one generation to the next through direct participation. The traditional Cladda ring, originated here in Galway, contains three elements that symbolize different aspects of the Irish approach to life. Before I reveal their meaning, what do you think the heart, hands and crown represent? The hands represent friendship, the heart represents love, and the crown represents loyalty, core values that define Irish relationships and culture. Wearing this ring, with the heart pointing outward, means your heart is available. Pointing inward means it's taken. As we leave Galway's vibrant streets behind, the western coastline of Ireland unfolds before us, a landscape that has inspired poets and dreamers for centuries. This wild Atlantic coastline represents Ireland at its most elemental, where mountain, sky and ocean engage in constant dialogue, creating light conditions that have drawn artists and filmmakers from around the world. We're traveling toward a place where Ireland's ancient past and mighty landscape converge. A kingdom once considered so beautiful that it drew the envy of gods themselves. Throughout Ireland, but especially along the western coast, evenings often culminate in traditional music sessions, or sessions as they're known in Irish. Unlike staged performances for tourists, authentic sessions are spontaneous gatherings where musicians play for the joy of music rather than payment. If you're fortunate enough to witness one during your travels, observe how musicians communicate without words, building on each other's energy. The best compliment to offer isn't applause, but attentive silence during the music and engaging conversation between sets. Have you experienced a traditional music session during your travels in Ireland? Share your experience in the comments below. Killarney National Park unfolds before us, Ireland's oldest national park and the jewel in the crown of County Kerry. These 26,000 acres of ancient forest, mountain and lake represent Ireland's natural heritage in its purest form. The oak woodlands we're walking through are among the last remnants of the vast forests that once covered Ireland. Before human settlement, these ancient trees blanketed the island. Now, less than 2% of native woodland remains. Here, Ireland's only native deer species still roam freely, direct descendants of herds that crossed the land bridge from continental Europe before rising seas created the Irish island 10,000 years ago. The three lakes of Killarney, Lough Lane, Muckross Lake and Upper Lake form the heart of this wilderness. These pristine waters support Ireland's last remaining population of native freshwater pearl mussels, living fossils that can survive for over 100 years and serve as critical indicators of water quality. Local legend claims these same waters hide entrance to Tirnanogue, the mythical land of youth, where no one ages and time stands still. Perhaps inspired by the remarkable longevity of creatures in this ecological sanctuary. Few people know that this panoramic viewpoint earned its name when Queen Victoria's ladies in waiting stopped here in 1861, declaring it the finest view in the royal dominions. The vista encompasses all three lakes and the purple mountains beyond. A landscape that somehow manages to appear both wild and composed, like a masterful painting brought to life. While tourists flock to Muckross House for its Victorian grandeur, the lesser visited traditional farms nearby offer a more authentic glimpse into Irish rural life before electricity transformed the countryside. These working farms have been meticulously recreated as they would have appeared in the 1930s and 40s. Unlike sterile museum exhibits, these are fully functioning farms where traditional methods continue exactly as they would have a century ago. Local farmers demonstrate forgotten skills, from thatching to butter making to the precise art of cutting turf for fuel. What makes this place extraordinary is that many demonstrators learned these techniques from their parents and grandparents, representing an unbroken chain of knowledge spanning centuries. Torc Waterfall crashes 20 meters down the mountain. Its name derived from the Irish word torc, meaning wild boar. According to local folklore, this spot was where an enchanted boar was killed by the ancient hero Fionn mac Cumhail after a chase that formed the surrounding landscape. This convergence of mythology and geology creates the foundation for Ireland's modern conservation ethic, where protecting natural features means simultaneously preserving the cultural stories embedded within them. What strikes visitors most isn't just the waterfall's power, but the almost supernatural green of the surrounding forest. The perpetual mist created by the cascade nurtures a microclimate where moss and ferns grow with unnatural vibrancy, creating what feels like an entrance to the fairy realm described in Celtic mythology. The secret few discover lies beyond the main viewing area. Following these ancient stone steps upward for about 10 minutes leads to a hidden viewpoint where the true scale of Killarney's landscape reveals itself in a panorama rarely seen in tourism photos. Killarney marks the beginning of Ireland's most famous scenic drive, the Ring of Kerry. This 179-kilometre circular route winds around the Ivora Peninsula, each turn revealing new wonders of mountain, coast and sky. While thousands travel this route each year, few understand its historical significance. These narrow roads follow ancient paths used by Celtic tribes, early Christian monks, and medieval traders. Desire lines worn into the landscape over millennia of human movement. Killarney and the surrounding Ring of Kerry embody Ireland's unique blend of natural grandeur and human history, a place where myths, nature and reality have become inseparably intertwined over thousands of years. Skellig Michael's jagged peaks hide a remarkably preserved monastic settlement dating to the 6th century, a testament to the lengths medieval Irish monks would go for spiritual isolation. These remote islands, 12 kilometres offshore, presented such challenge that ancient chronicles claim only the most devoted could survive here, where isolation became both physical reality and spiritual metaphor. The 600 hand-carved steps leading to the monastery have no railings and often grow slick with sea spray. Monks would climb these daily while carrying supplies, their dedication to spiritual practice outweighing considerable physical danger. The most remarkable aspect of Skellig Michael isn't just its dramatic location, but the ingenuity of its construction. The distinctive beehive huts, built without mortar by mathematically stacking thousands of stones, have withstood Atlantic storms for over 1,400 years, while simultaneously creating perfect nesting habitat for one of Europe's largest colonies of storm petrels and puffins. This rare harmony between human architecture and wildlife habitat represents one of the world's most successful accidental conservation stories. The monks who built these structures possessed sophisticated understanding of engineering principles that modern architects still study today. The precise mathematical relationships in their construction create structures where each stone depends on all others, a physical manifestation of the interconnectedness central to Celtic Christianity. What's most extraordinary is that these structures remain waterproof after 14 centuries of Atlantic storms. The stones were placed with such precision that rain continues to run off rather than penetrate the interior, requiring no maintenance across the centuries. Experiencing these spaces today offers rare insight into how architecture can serve spiritual purpose, creating environments that naturally foster contemplation through their proportions, acoustics, and relationship to surrounding landscape. Did you know that Skellig Michael is home to one of Ireland's largest seabird colonies? The island provides critical nesting grounds for puffins, gannets, and rare storm petrels. Share in the comments if you've spotted any of these remarkable birds during your Irish adventures. As we leave Kerry's majestic wilderness behind, Ireland reveals yet another face the rugged western coast gives way to the gentler contours of Ireland's ancient east. A landscape shaped by different forces, both geological and human. These stone walls crisscrossing the countryside tell stories of land ownership, famine, and resilience. Built largely during the 19th century, when landlords forced tenants to create field boundaries, they stand as monuments to anonymous craftsmen who shaped Ireland's pastoral aesthetic. We're heading toward the mountains that have been called Ireland's Garden, a place where monasticism flourished in Ireland's Golden Age, and where an ancient valley holds secrets of spiritual significance. Glendalough. The Valley of Two Lakes lies hidden in the Wicklow Mountains, its name whispering the promise of water in a sheltered glen. But what makes this valley extraordinary isn't its natural beauty alone, but what humans created here. In the 6th century, St. Kevin sought solitude in this remote valley, establishing a monastic settlement that would become one of medieval Europe's great centres of learning. For 600 years, Glendalough flourished as a beacon of spirituality and scholarship during Europe's darkest ages, a community that practiced sustainable forestry and medicinal plant cultivation techniques, documented in manuscripts that modern ecologists now study for insights on native species management. The stone monuments we see today represent Ireland's Golden Age, when Irish monasteries preserved classical knowledge lost elsewhere in Europe and developed the distinctive Celtic Christian tradition that produced masterpieces like the Book of Kells. This 30-metre tall round tower has stood sentinel in the valley for over a millennium. Built with no mortar, using only skillfully cut granite stones, it served both as bell tower and refuge during attacks. A reminder that even spiritual centres needed protection in medieval Ireland. Hidden from most visitors, a short hike from the main ruins leads to a modest pool fed by a sacred spring. This natural font, known as St. Kevin's Pool, was once a significant pilgrimage site believed to have healing properties. Unlike the commercialized holy wells found elsewhere in Ireland, this sacred spring remains relatively unknown, unmarked on tourist maps. Local tradition maintains that waters collected during the first sunrise after May Day, the ancient Celtic festival of Beltane, hold special curative powers. Pilgrims once travelled hundreds of miles to reach this spring. Today it's often visited only by locals who maintain the ancient customs, placing coins or cloth strips in nearby trees as offerings, a practice that blends Christian and pre-Christian traditions in typical Irish fashion. Rising above Glendalough Wicklow Mountains National Park stretches across 20,000 hectares of upland wilderness, a granite backbone running through Ireland's eastern counties. These mountains, though modest in height compared to alpine ranges, hold a special place in Irish consciousness. Their heather-clad slopes and deep glacial valleys have provided refuge throughout history for Ireland's last native red grouse populations and endangered heath butterflies, for rare bog orchids and carnivorous sundew plants, for monks seeking solitude, and for rebels hiding from colonial forces. This upland ecosystem represents one of Western Europe's last functioning blanket bog habitats, storing carbon that predates human civilization. The road we're travelling was built by British forces following the 1798 rebellion, designed to bring troops into these mountains that had sheltered Irish freedom fighters. Today it serves as one of Ireland's most scenic routes, its dark origins largely forgotten. At the heart of the Wicklow Mountains lies Sally Gap, a crossroads where four ancient routes meet amid Ireland's most pristine blanket bog ecosystem. This landscape holds within its peat layers a perfect climate record, stretching back thousands of years, each centimetre representing approximately a decade of environmental history, preserving pollen that tells the story of Ireland's changing flora since the last ice age. What makes this place extraordinary isn't just its visual drama, but its profound silence. Here in the mountains, less than an hour from Dublin's busy streets, you can still experience moments of complete natural quiet, a rarity in our modern world that connects visitors to the same silence that drew monks and mystics centuries ago. The Wicklow Mountains have long represented wildness in Irish consciousness, a place of both physical and spiritual refuge. During times of persecution, these highlands sheltered both body and spirit of a culture fighting to preserve its identity through centuries of colonial rule. Hidden among the heather lie some of Ireland's least known ancient monuments. Stone alignments dating to the Bronze Age that once guided travellers along mountain paths and likely served astronomical functions. Unlike famous sites such as Newgrange, these stone arrangements remain largely unstudied and unprotected. Their precise orientation suggests they tracked solstices and equinoxes, functioning as a kind of mountain calendar for ancient communities who understood the rhythms of this landscape in ways modern science is only beginning to rediscover. What makes these monuments extraordinary isn't their grandeur, but their subtlety, how they integrate with the landscape rather than dominate it. Unlike megalithic sites designed for maximum visibility, these stone markers reveal a culture that saw itself as participant within nature rather than master over it. A philosophy now reflected in Ireland's pioneering wildlife corridors and community-led conservation initiatives, reconnecting fragmented habitats across ancient routes. As daylight fades over these ancient mountains, our journey continues toward Ireland's capital city, where Viking foundations and Georgian elegance create a uniquely Irish urban experience. What destinations would you like to see in our next exploration of Ireland's eastern coast? Share your suggestions in the comments below. Our journey continues beyond this film. Subscribe to join our Cultraverse community of travellers seeking deeper connections with our world. I find myself once more at the edge of Ireland, where land meets ocean in dramatic conversation. But I see these cliffs differently now, not as isolated wonders, but as part of a continuous story, written in stone, water, and resilient human spirit. Ireland's true wonder isn't found in any single landmark, but in the connections between them. How ancient monastic traditions link to vibrant modern culture, how geological forces created both barren moonscapes and fertile valleys, how centuries of hardship produced people renowned for warmth and creativity. Perhaps this is Ireland's greatest gift to travellers, the understanding that beauty emerges most powerfully where opposites meet, where land confronts sea, where ancient touches modern, where hardship gives birth to resilience. This Emerald Isle teaches us that ecological and cultural heritage are inseparable aspects of the same living system. A profound lesson increasingly relevant to our contemporary environmental challenges. The Irish have a saying, "Your feet will bring you to where your heart is." For centuries, these dramatic coasts and verdant valleys have drawn travellers seeking something beyond ordinary experience, something that speaks to the soul's deepest needs. Perhaps it's no coincidence that Ireland's ecological heritage mirrors its cultural one, an island where native wildlife and ancient human traditions have adapted together for millennia, creating landscapes that nourish both biodiversity and human spirit. In this ancient land, where stone keeps memories and music carries stories, I've found not just scenic beauty, but a deeper understanding of how landscape shapes human spirit, and how human spirit in turn gives meaning to landscape. This journey continues beyond this film. Subscribe now to join our community of travellers seeking deeper connections with our world. This is Ireland, not just a destination, but a conversation between past and present, nature and humanity, hardship and beauty. Its wonders await those willing to look beyond postcard images to discover the living heart of this ancient island.